Hello everyone. In this AKS series, this time I'm going to deploy an AKS cluster using Terraform. Right now, I'm in shell.azure.com. So this is your cloud shell or Azure CLI running over your browser. So you don't need to install anything in local machine. You can just open any browser and type shell.azure.com. This will ask you to log in using your credential. For the first time, you have to create a storage account. It will prompt you, and then you are all set. Now, once you or inside a Cloud Shell, it would look like something like this at the background. You can see that it looks something like this, and you have lot of tools already installed over here. One of them is the AZ CLI, and then you have got Git, you have got kubectl. All of them are available, and also it has Terraform. So if you see here, the Terraform is installed. Just to check the version, so you say Terraform-version. It shows you the version 1.0.6 is available over here. So the Terraform is available. Now what also I'm going to do is that I'm going to create an alias so that I don't have to type this whole Terraform again and again. I can simply type this T minus version and it'll show me the Terraform version. So Terraform is installed. Now what I need to do is that I need to create something to be able to build anything within this Azure subscription. So let's start from scratch. Now let us first create a directory, AKS Terraform, and then I say AKS Terraform. I get inside the Terraform. Right now, we don't have anything inside this folder. Now, what I can do is that I can create a Terraform in a Notepad, which will be clearly visible in front of us. And we can pretty much copy the content of the Terraform into our VI editor. So let us open this Notepad. Now, let me delete all of them. Let's keep it a clean slate. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go ahead and write things step by hand. You can copy it from the Terraform portal, but let's understand them one by one. So it starts with a Terraform. A Terraform is a JSON-based thing, so you can or may not, let's say, format the line, but however, it's fine. So let's format it a bit. So I'll say required provider. Now Terraform uses many different kind of providers, which will allow you to interact with those different cloud vendors. So Azure RM is for Azure Resource Manager. So it stands for Azure RM, not Azure, just Azure. So you come over here and then you say that now I'm gonna say source. So the source is HashiCorp / Azure RM. Okay, so it will be used so many times that you don't have to remember it. You can, even if you don't remember, that's okay. You can always copy from the official documentation. Now, one thing you need to mention, what is the version, minimum version it required? So how do you say the minimum version is something greater than 2.65? Okay, so you have to be careful about which version you are selecting. Now let's finish this Azure RM. Let's finish this provider, and let's finish this Terraform thing. So the Terraform provider part is done. Okay. And then before we end this line, you actually need to also provide another information, that is required version. If you do that, now let's put something inside greater than equal to 0.14.9. So these things keeps on changing depending on the version it supports, etc. So this is the skeleton of your Terraform looks like. Now, since we are using the provider Azure Resource Manager, we need to explicitly call that out. So I'll say Azure RM, and then I finish this off, and then I use any specific feature. So I'll have to say that, call it out explicitly. I'll say features, and if I don't have anything, just leave it like that. So that's the kind of Terraform which is getting almost ready. Now, first thing first, what we need for every Azure resources is a resource group. So let's first create a resource. So Terraform resources looks like this, and then they have a specific name. So since we are using Azure RM, and when we say resource group, that's how Terraform differentiates many different kind of thing. And you give a name to this resource group called RG. That's your name. Okay. And then you provide two important information. What is the name of the resource group you're gonna create? So ARG AKS TF stands for Terraform. So that's your name. And then what is the location where you want to specify this resource group? So whenever you try to create a resource group, you need to always provide these two information mandatorily. Rest all you can omit, but these two are the mandatory information. So whatever Azure CLI mandatory parameter it requires, you need to provide that. So let's start this simple Terraform. Okay, it looks complete to me. So if you look here in this Terraform uh, thing, you have got a resource group, you are using this provider, and you are using this Terraform 1, 2, 3. So I just wanted to make sure that they are all closed. And then what I need is that whole thing. So I copy this whole Terraform thing, and I create a Terraform, let's say, um, vim aks.tf. So the extension of the Terraform stands with the TF. So we'll have this created now just to make sure that we closed all the braces. So let me go in each of these braces and we'll highlight. Okay, so we looks fine. So now let me save it, come out. Now Terraform has got a couple of commands. Now it's easy to remember if you follow some certain pattern. So if you notice here in this, I can run few commands. So let me hide this thing. And when I'm in the console, right, I start with the first command that is init. That's the first command. It will initialize my Terraform, right? And then I can plan it. Now, what is the plan? What it's gonna do if when I initialize this? And then after the plan looks fine, I can either validate or apply. The moment I say apply, it'll definitely do the validation. So the validate happens explicitly when you say apply. Now, if you're done with everything, you call destroy to kill the whole environment. Now, Terraform keeps track of whatever you are doing. So if you make some changes to the Terraform file and apply again, it'll only apply the changes you made. So for example, you have modified an existing resource group with a tag, it'll just add the tag. It will not delete or recreate the whole thing. So that's the sequence. So if you notice here, it is iPad. So if you remember iPad, you'll be able to remember this whole sequence. Init, plan, apply, destroy. Okay, let's use the iPad here, over here. So if you notice here that my Terraform file is available, right? So that is AKSTF, and that's the Terraform how it looks like. Now, if I am in that folder, okay, in the same folder where my that .tf file is, and I use this alias which I have created for Terraform, that is Terraform init, you will be able to see that there is some problem. There is a spelling mistake. So let's correct it out. Okay. Okay, let me just use that providers. There could be many more, but let's just start with this. Okay. And then I say init. So there is spelling mistake. So let me go ahead, provide. There's okay, your muscle memory is far way better than modifying things. Now let's just try again. Now this time it seems like things are fine, so it is going to go ahead and initialize this whole Terraform. One step done. Second is that we plan it. We use T-plan, Terraform plan. If you run this command, what happens? It will tell you what exactly it's gonna go ahead and do. So it will go through your declarative file, understand the steps you want to take, right? And then it'll basically have that plan placed in front of you. So this green sign, plus sign, means these will be added. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is now I'm gonna say apply. So I say apply. If I do that, it will be applied to my subscription. Now, one thing which you don't need to do over here when you use Cloud Shell is that you don't need to do AZ login. But if you are not using the Cloud Shell, you are using your own console, you need to log in to that your subscription where you need to run this Terraform. Okay, so that's one thing you need to do. If you can also provide the subscription information with the Terraform file, and all these things can be done pretty quickly. So if I say yes, now what happens, it will kickstart the resource group creation process and give you some sort of output. And you see that resource group is pretty quick in terms of it is now able to create that resource group. Now, definitely this is done. And the name of the resource group was RG-AKS-TF. So if I go ahead and say AZ, that's my AZ CLI, AZ group show name. And then if I give the name, it's going to go ahead and show me the resource group. And you can see that this is the resource group which got created over here. Now let's say I want to delete this resource group. So I don't run AZ group delete -n and the resource group name. I can do that, but I can also use my Terraform to destroy. Now what it is going to do is that it's going to delete the resource group which it has created earlier and clean it up. Now this destroy means that it's going to go ahead and clean this whole thing, right? I just need to say yes to make sure that I'm doing it with full conscious thing. So it's gonna go ahead and clean my resource group. And you will not be able to see that resource group anymore in the bra subscription you are right now in. So your subscription is sort of like clean. It doesn't have any resource group right now at this point in time. So let us go back to our rough file where we were creating this thingy called this. Let me clean that iPad thing. Remember iPad, you will never forget the execution sequence. Okay, so if I go down, so we have created the resource group. Okay, and that what we need to do is that we need to create Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so in Terraform, the resource name is Azure RM underscore Kubernetes cluster. So if you create this Kubernetes cluster and give a name AKS2 WG2, that's going to go ahead and create an AKS cluster. So this is the name of the object you are creating. So I can give any names. I can give just an AKS. And then inside that, there are a couple of mandatory parameters. Now, all these, whether they are mandatory or not, you will be able to find them in the official documentation of the Terraform directory. So if you go ahead and say name, let's not put a lot of effort formatting that. So I say AKSWG23. That's the name of the cluster. And then the location is something you need to specify. And the location can be the location of the resource group. And if you want to maintain the same location, one of the ways to get that location is that use the resource which is created before this resource, that is this one, and then you say location, and then also identify this with the name that is rg.location. So this is something which you can use even for the name of the group. So that is your resource group, right? So it's resource group name, and the resource group name is the resource group dot name. So you see that you are leveraging the previously created thing. And another thing you need is DNS prefix. If you do that, now what happens is that AKSWG23 will be the DNS name of the cluster I'm going to create, right? And a couple of additional information you might need within this thing, within this same resource. That is number one is the default node pool. So you all know that in AKS, we use a concept of node pool. So node pool is the same set of VM, same configuration, but it can scale up and down, right? So you can actually have a Linux node pool, which basically hosts the Linux machines. And then you can say that I want to start with 5, go up to 20, right? So that's the kind of scale you can define. And the node pool has a name. So let's just give a name called default node pool. And that's generally the name given, but you can give any name. And then I can start with a node count equal to 1. So let's be economical by having a limited node count for testing VM only. This is not going to host any production, so I don't need a large node pool. So VM size is something which is, let's say, standard, and you can get the name of the VM size uh, from the documentation, and or you can run the Azure CLI command to know what is the name you need to provide. So standard D2, V2 is one of the types available in Azure. And then the last thing you need over here is the identity. Okay, so identity is something where you need to say that it's a system managed identity or self-managed or SPN, right? So we say type, and the type is system assigned. Okay, so that's capital assigned is the type of identity. So this is the minimum information probably we need. So if things are fine, we can copy the whole content of the file and go to our vim AKS Terraform and then say delete all of them. So clean them up and then paste it. Now you can see that new content of the file is ready. So if I just go ahead and clean it up and then I save this file. Now there is a new file. Now I can say Terraform init. If I do that, the initialization gives me a problem, which is required provider, the same issue I had before, which I did not modify. So let's just fix that. Okay. I say uh, this providers. Okay. And then come out. See, there is another problem with the spelling. Okay. 3 is who you are. RE is okay. So RE is who you are. You will never have these kind of issues if you copy from the documentation. Now it initializes, right? So that means it is fine. Now I can also call this plan iPad. Remember that. And this time it'll be a bit complicated, right? So again, there is a problem. So that is here prefix. So I always mistyping things out. So I just come out and then say plan. So the Terraform plan will tell you what exactly it's going to go ahead and do that. Now remember, we created the resource group, but we deleted that. So because we have deleted that, there is no resource group. So it's going to tell me that it will go ahead and create a resource group, and it also will create an AKS cluster. And that's the information about the AKS cluster. So what is the DNS prefix and all this information which will be generated once this AKS cluster. You can pass them on if you have anything specific to provide, you can always provide. But let's just run this. Okay, so it looks fine. So if we run the apply, that's gonna go ahead and apply. And this time, this is gonna take a longer time. Okay, because it will not only create a resource group, but also create a full-fledged AKS cluster. That way, it will, I have to say yes, it will go ahead and make sure that all the things which are mentioned in the declaration, which is bare minimum, I didn't mention a lot of things, will all be created. So the first thing will be the resource group. Once that resource group is created, then it will create the AKS cluster. So you can see that the AKS cluster creation kick-started. Now, if there is an issue with the cluster creation, it will fail here. It will tell that there is some issue with whatever you specified is not working. Either the name is not unique, or maybe the DNS prefix is not unique, something of or the other, it will fail here. But if you know that it is moving, that means it is working. Just to check the status here, what I can do, I can just run the portal.azure.com and go inside the same subscription I'm using in the Azure portal, which is a nice little view. And then what I can do, I can look for the resource group created over here, and you will find a resource group. So let me not use this. You'll find the resource group which I just now have created in this list because resource group is already created, rgakstf. And if you go inside that resource group, you see the AKSWG23 is under creation. So it basically will, will tell you all the details. It is not yet done. So you'll get to know once this is kind of done. So you will be able to see that this whole creation process completed when this is done. So this is a little bit about the Terraform, how you can use Terraform to basically create the AKS cluster, delete it once it's done, come back, rerun the Terraform, and it'll take care of creating all those things you need in the AKS cluster. So you build Terraform once, run it multiple times without really changing. All the value I have provided in form of string can be provided as parameter or a variable. So Terraform does allow the variable concept, which essentially means that you can change the variable file. You don't need to change the main Terraform file, and they just keep changing the values in the variable file and associate the variable file with that. So the Terraform will maintain its state, which means that if I come back and say that I need to add some feature to my AKS cluster, I can do that in modifying the Terraform form, apply the same for Terraform file, and it will only apply the changes to my existing cluster. With this, thank you very much, and I hope you have enjoyed this session.